So this is a piece on drones, which is something that is really picked up recently. They've been in the news for all sorts of reasons. One of the reasons being injuries to small children. I think it's on BBC programme Watchdog, and they were saying how this particular child, I think it was a baby, was hit by one indoors. The father or somebody was playing with it, and they got a propeller blade, well, several of them, and they're whirling around and you fly around the room. This is only a small one, obviously, this little drone I had. Maybe the propeller blade is a bit bigger diameter than that, maybe, kind of like that, but it's going around at several thousand RPM or something. So it is quite dangerous. We used to do model airplanes when I was a kid. We used to construct them and fly them, and those were the forerunner of drones. I mean, of course, drones go way back. The one good example is in Second World War. The Nazis built those. There was a whole, I think it's in Battle of Britain or something, they showed them. There was a whole ski jump thing, and this drone, pardon me, this flying bomb would go up the ramp and go over and run out of fuel about London, or a bit before London, then glide down and crash into London. It was kind of a bit hit or miss. It wasn't radio controlled. It was kind of like catapulting something that's rocket propelled in the general direction of your enemy. London being so big, of course, and only being 20 miles or whatever across the channel from France during the war when the Nazis occupied France. London was quite a good target. So these drones contain explosives, obviously, and that is one factor that, in the serious side of drones, the police are concerned about. Other drones that could be talked about are not mentioned too often, but model racing car type drones. I mean, that's a drone, it's just on wheels. Controlled by similar methods. It's a mobile telephone type system. In the old days, you had a handheld set with joysticks, and you had to register that with the GPO, that's the post office, who were the licensing authority at the time. And I think you had to tell them what wavelength you were on. There was a crystal that set the frequency, a little plug-in thing that set the frequency. It's only about the size of your thumbnail. And you tried to keep away from other people with the same frequencies, because you would lose control of your model boat or aircraft or car or whatever it was. Now there isn't that problem. In other words, they're much more sophisticated now, and of course they have cameras on board. So of course the great thing is you could fly them for miles and miles. The only reason they can't is because they've got electric motors and the batteries run out. But if you were to replace the electric motors, say, with internal combustion engines, like model airplanes have, little petrol engines or compression ignition engines, they're more like diesels, you could fly a lot further. There are laws about drones, of course. I've encountered drones, as most people watching this will have, out in the real world on the very odd occasion. You sometimes see them on YouTube. Almost always now, if you see an aerial shot of something, that will be a drone, not a helicopter. In the old days, it was only big news channels could afford helicopters, or they begged or borrowed, in the case of the BBC, a helicopter to fly over to see some incident. Or a microlight aircraft back in the 80s, 90s, microlight aircraft, and you'd be in a motorway, there'd be an accident somewhere up ahead, you'd see a microlight fly over after half an hour or so, some enterprising person taking some pictures. And that is what would appear, just keeping this iPad going, that's what would appear on the TV, in the news and stuff. But drones, so drone owners, and I've just got some notes here I'm going to refer to, they fall into a very common trap, and the common trap is legal versus decent. Okay? Some people really, when it suits them, take the view that legality is all that's important, and they take it that legal is the same as decent. So if you're allowed to do it by law, then you're allowed to do it. Let's say somebody's bleeding on the ground, you've come by the scene of an accident, and there's nobody else there. It's on a lonely road, nobody else there, it's getting dark. You could just drive past and say you didn't see him. That'd be completely legal. Would it be decent? So I mean, I saw one guy, he crashed into the hedge and he was standing having a cigarette or something by his car, and he just got caught out the way the road changed. And I stopped to say alright, because it wasn't that busy a road. And he was alright and it was okay, I drove on. But he could have had somebody else in the car who wasn't alright, or he might have hit somebody, or who knows, you know. Okay, so legal is not the same as decent. I had a neighbour. He had a brick wall. He just bought the house next door and he had a brick wall that faced us, and one little window way down the house. And then within about, it's a 12-foot distance of our bathroom window, he suddenly installed a new window. Not obscure glass, and into a room that he made into a dining kitchen. In fact, the kitchen sink looked over. So there was a direct line of sight with our bathroom. What's even more astonishing is he knew we had 2 young daughters. And I actually asked him the question, are you going to put a window in there? And just the way the laws work, he is able to do it legally. But as I pointed out to him, that's not neighbourly. So I've had to rebuild the fence and kill all the holes in it by putting slats on it that I didn't want to do, and all sorts of stuff. Another example of legal versus decent. So drones are one of those things, they remind me very much of the hoverboard business. Remember hoverboards? They were a fad for about 6 months, and then very quickly the word was put out there. Loads of people got them ordered for Christmas, kids and stuff, some adults. It's not really a hovering thing at all, for those that don't know. It's got 2 wheels on it, and the wheels are like this, and the way the axle is, it's below the level of the axle line of the wheels. That gives you a certain amount of balance, you see. Therefore, it doesn't fall over like you would imagine it would. In that regard, it's very like a mini Segway. Remember Segway? Some have handles, and yeah, okay. So, loads of people bought them. Then it turns out you're not allowed to use them on public walkways if you are in people's way. You've got to give way. Now, there's no way that you can stop like that in a public walkway. In reality, people try to zoom down pedestrian precincts and stuff, and you know, in reality, there's not many places to ride, if that's the word, hoverboards. And drones are a bit like that, because here's the law about drones. The CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, rules in the UK, which is law. It's not to be within 50 metres of people or buildings. Okay, it's worth repeating. The law says an unmanned aircraft, which is what a drone, no matter what size is, must not be within 50 metres of people or buildings. Now, somebody said that supposedly this only applies to drones with cameras where something is recording the video. Now, how do you prove or disprove that? Okay, think about it. I understand the sport of flying drones and racing drones in an empty field with a course set out and all that stuff, but not many people do that with their drones. I would have thought, and my reason for going to buy a drone, and I haven't yet done so, my reason would only be to fit a camera to it. And the cameras are getting smaller and smaller, and we now have 4K cameras for a few £100 by GoPro that you can put in a drone. Now, so when people say the usual excuses which are trotted out, which are, show your neighbour the drone, on drone sites you see this, show the neighbour your drone, the picture you get from it, show them that it's bad quality, then they won't mind that you're overflying their garden. See, 50 metres distance means that if you're 150 feet in the air, a bit less than 50 metres, but if you're 150 feet in the air, technically you might obey that rule. But of course, you've got to get to be 150 feet in the air. So once a drone's flying, the only person that knows really whether it's recording or not is the person who owns it and who is flying it. And there's no way they can get it 50 metres up in the air without first, in Britain anyway, usually being within no more than 5 meters of a neighbour's fence. And remember, 50 meters of people or buildings. I'm not sure how the law works, but your own building may even count. So even the drone owner's building may count. And as people, what about their kids? And several injuries do occur. I mentioned the propeller blade. I'll just quickly nip back to that. Propeller blades racing around at thousands of RPM. They do have sharp edges because you want to cut through the air easily, and electric motors don't have a lot of battery power to spare. All they have to do is put a circular edge all the way around all the propeller blades, and then that is almost going to cut out all the accidents that have so far occurred with drones. So you have a normal propeller blade, but you have multiple blades, and then you have an edge around it. Now they're maybe not quite as efficient, or not this, or not that, the other, but they are super safe. Because you touch the edge of that, you get this blank, blunt, spinning edge touching your hand, not a cutting blade. So, anyway, so they're flying them obviously within 50 meters of people and buildings. I've seen a couple out in the countryside. One, I went to a famous place called, a well-known area for climbing called Maplin. And there's no doubt that they have been contravening that law, because they're right beside a footpath. They're definitely closer than 50 meters. And they're up in the air. Now, I felt uncomfortable even though we're fully clothed and out walking and there's loads of people there. And I felt a little uncomfortable at being watched by somebody who I didn't really want to watch me at that time. It's not I particularly objected to them watching, but certainly there was nothing like permission. It's one of those things. Now, here's an analogy, or actually an actual thing. You and your neighbours, imagine that you're the kind of person who gets a camera, sticks it on a pole, and instead of holding it with the pole, looking at yourself and doing a video, a selfie, whatever, blog, you get it on the end of a pole and you stick it just at the boundary of your fence, but looking at your neighbour. You know, so you got a camera, right? On the edge of the pole, and like this, and you're going, oh yeah, what are they doing? Yeah, right? Would that be alright? Heck no. Doesn't matter what weather it is, how dressed your neighbours are, just the nosiness of it. So let's say you didn't even have a camera, let's say you just peered over the fence. That is sufficiently nosy, so most people, if they wanted to do that to their neighbour, they would wait till the neighbour was out. But drones are a kind of impersonal thing. It kind of puts a barrier between you and the people you're watching. And first, of course, people have to ascertain what the drone is. Now, how do you recognise a drone? Well, it sounds like a swarm of bees. Could be on occasion mistaken for a strimmer, as I did the other day, and it turned out to be this swarm of bees sound, which is a drone going up. And they always look at the neighbours. Why? Well, there's no way they're looking at themselves. You know what you look like, and you know what your garden looks like. The reality is, you're using the drone like a huge, long pole with a camera on top. That's it. You're not going to look at your own garden. You're going to look at everybody else's garden. You'll send it up 150 feet so it's legal, then you'll spin it around slowly. What else would you do with it? And on both occasions that I've seen drones go up by neighbours, they have got cameras on them. There's no way they haven't got the camera running. If that drone overflies you, what can you do about it? Well, legally you can complain about it, blah blah. Some people, of course, have been unfortunate enough to have the batteries run out on them when they're driving, flying their drone, piloting it around the area. And then a neighbour has apparently appropriated the drone, they've never seen it again. But let's say you don't lose it, and all you do with it is maybe what's legally allowed, maybe, is to send it straight up and down, and the camera's not recording. Who would want to do that? So the sliver, the thin narrow sliver of law, legal use of a drone, when you're in a built up area, is simply this: no camera running, recording anyway. And you're only able to put it up vertically, and of course you've already broken the law because you're within 50 meters of buildings and people. So there's a sliver of legal use in a built up area, and I would say that 90% of the time drones are not used in that sliver of a legal reality. They are used with a camera running. and they are within 50 metres of people, and they are within 50 metres of buildings, because it's a built-up area. And in the UK, most people don't have massive gardens and stuff. And if you did, it probably wouldn't be a problem. Okay, so there's all that stuff. I'm just looking through my points and see if there's anything else. Yes, I mean, basically, the reason why drones are intrusive is there's no permission business goes on. No permission business. You'll just be in your garden one day and some drone will go whizzz, and it'll appear, and it'll be watching you in your garden. People have fences and bushes and hedges and trees that are all designed for normal nosy parkers. Okay? Now we've introduced drones into the world. There are exceptional nosy parkers. Does that make you feel alright? No, it doesn't. Is it alright? No, it isn't. Do the drone owners know it's not alright? In their heart of hearts, they know full well it's not alright. It's being an exceptional nosy parker. You aren't looking at your own family and your own gardens because there's no point. You are looking at other people, and you will 90% of the time be using it specifically because it can carry a camera. And you are circumventing everybody's normal privacy steps that they've taken, like bushes and fences and trees that are to 2-odd meters high, which is what all the laws and rules around fences and things in the UK are designed for. But now we've got somebody who's brazen enough to just be a nosy parker with a camera on a long pole, otherwise known as a drone. It's not alright, and everybody knows it's not alright. It may at the moment, by a slender sliver, be able for the drone owner to be able to defend it, saying he hasn't been recording, but I'm telling you, he, and it probably is a he, probably has been recording, because there's no other point in having a drone but to put a camera, and if you're not going to record it, what's the point? That's really the top and the bottom on drones. They're getting away with it for the moment. And not even the most basic safety steps, like having a circular moulding around the propeller, has been done yet. If they haven't even done the basic safety steps yet, it'll take forever to get round to making sure that enforcement of them not looking at the neighbours in a nosy parker way is done. How can you stop the drone? Well, you can get a jammer. Jammers jam telephone signals, and you can use a similar jammer to jam the signal to the drone. You can throw some kind of netting or blanket at it if it comes on over your property. If you can reach it with something like that, you can bring it down, probably without damaging it much. What do you do with it when you get it? Well, in America, a lot of people say that once you've got it, it's yours. If you manage to appropriate a drone, you're probably in the same position the drone owner was in most of the time, which is he could have plausible deniability. Oh, you can't prove that I'm filming. Well, of course, the drone owner can't prove that you've got their drone, which just leads to a lot of nasty things going on between neighbours. So my earnest advice is that obey the reality of the fact that it may be legal very occasionally, but not most occasions, and it is intrusive, and there's no permission given. And you know full well that people don't want to be intruded on, or nobody in the British Isles would have fences, bushes, trees, buildings in the way. You know, everyone knows what's legal and decent, and most normal people in their heart of hearts know exactly what the difference is. Thanks for watching and listening.